Join. Hey Chief, how are you tonight?
How you doing?
Good. Jim, are we expecting anyone else?
No, this is it. I see Patrick from Cable TV's on here. So, Patrick, are we ready to go down there?
You're all set.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks Patrick. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. So welcome everybody. It's now 7 o'clock time, the time of our posted meeting, and welcome to the June 9th meeting of Waffle Select Board. Please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are still obviously operating under our remote participation process as allowed under the governor's executive order from March 12th of this year, as we continue to work remotely due to the coronavirus pandemic. So since we're working remotely, we're going to follow what we've done in the last several weeks, several meetings. We will do roll call votes for every vote that we take, and in order to make sure that we have an even flow of conversation, I'll just recognize people as we have been doing for discussion. So with that said, under new business, our first piece of business is to vote a request of Ashley Clark, our Economic Development Officer, who is with us tonight, to waive the application and lease fees for restaurants and bars for 6 months in November to November 2020. So Ashley, if I could just turn it to you to step us through this.
Yeah, so as I'm sure everyone's very well aware, businesses, especially, all businesses are struggling right now with the closures. Restaurants are starting to figure out how to reopen, and sometimes that includes coming into a lease agreement with the town. There are also sometimes fees that come up for like 1-day permits and just kind of miscellaneous fees that restaurants might encounter in doing business with the town. So I'm asking the select board to consider waiving those fees until November 1st of this year, just to make it a little bit easier on the restaurants as they start to reopen.
Great, yeah, and I think it's a good idea to do that. Anything that we can do to help get particularly the restaurants downtown back up and running, I think is a good thing for us to do. So let me open it up for discussion. Mark, I'll start with you. Anything for Ashley?
No, I think it's a great idea. Anything we can do to help the restaurants all over town, if they can find a space to expand into and go outdoors, I think that's a great thing. And I like the idea that, this has a finite date on it, but we can help people get through the end of the year and then, see what next year brings us. So I think it's a great idea. Great work, Ashley.
David, I'll go to you next.
Exactly what fees are we talking about, and how much is it going to amount to?
So just as an estimate, the lease agreement with Jalapenos is for about $100 a month. So we're talking about $600 or so for the term of that. Right now there are 3 lease agreements that we're asking you to approve tonight. So $1,800 for some quick math. And then there are miscellaneous. So, and I don't know that this is going to be the case, but some restaurants may decide to do like a 1-day liquor license, and that would be, I think, $65 a day. So, certainly not fees like the building department sees or like we get for the special permits and whatnot. It's hard to say. I just don't know how many restaurants are gonna move forward with like 1-day permits to give you a better estimate, but about $1,800 on the leases.
Well, are the leases for more than 6 months? This is for outdoor space, isn't it?
So the leases are temporary. They're 6-month leases, and they're written under the COVID-19 order number 35, which is the order the governor gave that allows local local agencies to issue changes of premises. Normally that would have to go through the ABCC. So these are 6-month leases for a temporary outdoor seating.
Okay, I just didn't understand why you wrote the lease. Why write the lease up for $100 and then waive the lease? Like, why not just write the lease up for a lower number?
I can chime in on that one. The original attorney who wrote it for one of the restaurants filled in $100, and Ashley caught it when she was checking everything.
Okay, that's fine.
Anything else, David?
All set.
Okay, Ben?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay, Ashley, I think this is good work on your part. Thanks for everything you're doing to try and get things going in the downtown. Heck knows we need the help. So, Ben, I'll turn to you for a motion, please.
I would make a motion to approve the request of Ashley Clark to waive the application and lease fees for restaurants and bars until November 1st, 2020.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, so we'll roll call vote this. Mark?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 4-0-0, the motion carries. One quick thing that I meant to say at the start of today's meeting is Nancy McKenzie is not able to join us tonight. She got called into an emergency situation in the hospital tonight and isn't going to be able to join us, in case you're wondering why she's not here. All right, next up is a vote of request subject to review and approval of the police, fire, health, and building departments for alteration of premises submitted pursuant to the governor's COVID-19 order number 35. And we have a long list of outdoor use permits that are being sought for the 99 Restaurant, Bristol Square, Beacons, the Raven's Nest, Tessie's Bar and Kitchen, Sapor Vero, Clyde's Bar and Grill, Crisp, Farmer Liddell, Jalapenos, and Finnegan's Wake. Those are the lists that we have right now. What these folks are looking to do is be able to expand their premises to the outdoors so that they can seat more people while properly socially distancing those customers. So Ashley, what would you add to this one?
So basically we're asking the select board to let us be nimble in a way that I think is really necessary right now. Normally these applications would go through all the departments and then they would come before you and say, we've got the all clear from police, we've got the all clear from fire. So we're kind of asking you to be okay with flipping that script a little bit. So we're asking you to approve these subject to the final review and approval of these different departments. And that's really so that we can roll these approvals out as quickly as possible. So that's not to say that these aren't going to be looked at by the different departments. They've gotten a bevy of emails from me over the last few days. So they are being looked at for safety. They are being looked at, for compliance on blocking sidewalks and whatnot. So that'll all happen. We just want to be able to get approvals out without having to bring them back before you. There's another portion of that that's asking the select board to give the authority for the chair to sign any agreements for folks that might come in over the next few days or a couple of weeks. That's all I really have to add. I can answer any questions that you might have or try to answer any questions.
Yeah, and so the real point of this is that we're trying to be, to use your words, nimble, so that we can get the approvals to these businesses as quickly as we can and not be dependent upon an every 2-week meeting with the Board of Selectmen. So that's really at the crux of it. To your point, we are just flipping the process a little bit. The entire process will be followed. Chief Carmichael, I know you're with us tonight. Is there anything that you'd want to add to this?
Well, I mean, Ashley is so thorough with everything, which you're amazing. It's just very, very thorough. So everything that I've looked at so far appears to be very safe. You know, it's been very open for us to make any comments on any of the, the applications and the process that we've seen so far. So I'm pretty confident that going forward that we're just going to be able to find a nice, safe, accommodating way to get this done. So and I think a lot of people are looking forward to it as well with everything that's been going on. And, I think we're chomping at the bit to be able to go and sit down at some of our restaurants.
Thanks, Chief. Jim, anything that you'd like to add before we go to discussion?
No, just I've kind of kept all of you updated on this one. Ashley's done a great job. She stayed on top of this. We've been working on this for a month plus now. So everything's pretty much lined up. I expect we'll probably get a couple more of these as these restaurants get up and running and people see how it works. So, no.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Okay, let's open up for discussion. Ben, I'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks again, Ashley, for doing this. It's a great program to pursue, and I think it's a great idea. So it sounds like all the planning and the groundwork has really been laid in a thoughtful manner, so that now that's been the governor's made his decision, it can be rolled out in a reasonable way. So thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Mark, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think it's a great idea, and I would encourage any other restaurant in town that's thinking of doing this to come forward and start the process. I think it will help the restaurants get off to a good start before they can start seating people indoors. And this is a beautiful time of year, so it will be nice to sit outdoors at a restaurant real soon.
Great, thanks, Mark. And David?
Yeah, excellent work. I'm glad this is all working out. I've talked to a couple of business owners and they're very happy. I do have a concern with giving ceding over the authority of the board to the chairman or the vice chairman. If that is to happen, I would like to have a system where that some kind of email go out with all of the information that the chairman is receiving, with the being careful that we are not deliberating during this process, but that all the information gets out, and that there be a process that if there's something that we don't like, that we either have a special meeting or go to the next scheduled meeting to get that approval in. I'm not prepared to cede the authority to the chairman at this time.
Okay, thank you, David. I've already said that I think this is a good idea, and Ashley, thank you for the good work you've done on it. So what I'd like to do first is there are two votes we want to take here. Ashley mentioned the second one, which David also just referenced. For the first vote, we're just going to focus on the list of restaurants that we've got here. And so, Ben, if I could ask you to offer a motion on that, and then we'll come back around on that chairman question in a second.
I would make a motion for the request of the following establishments to have outdoor seating and serving of alcohol subject to review and approval of police, fire, health, and building departments. 99 Restaurant, Bristol Square, Beacons, The Raven's Nest, Hesse's Bar and Kitchen, Sapo Vero, Clyde's Bar and Grill, Crisp, Farmer in the Dell, Jalapenos, and Finnegan's Wake.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So, David, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 4-0-0, the motion carries. So then we've got the vote to authorize the chair to sign all future applications submitted pursuant to COVID-19 order number 35. Ashley already touched on this. I'm going to make this very easy. I'm fine with, having the email thing that David talked about, as long as we don't get balled up with any open meeting law violations, but I have no issue with what David suggested. So, David, let me just hand it back to you for a second and see if you're good with what I just said.
That's fine. Just you know, all the information that you're receiving, that we receive, and then your response, and then we'll just, you know, not deliberate, but if there's something that, you know, if I have an issue, I'll just contact you separately or contact the town administrator, and we'll just go that way.
Yep, no problem. Mark, any discussion on your end?
No, I think that's a good process.
Okay, and Ben?
No additional comment.
Okay, so Ben, we'll take a motion.
I would make a motion to authorize the chair to sign all future applications submitted pursuant to COVID-19 order number 35 with the documentation being transmitted to the board as well.
I'll second that.
Let me just check. David, you good with that motion?
Yes.
Okay, motion and a second. David, I'll start with you this time.
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye, 4-0-0, motion carries. Next up, we have a vote. We have a vote request of Jalapenos Restaurant for temporary alteration of premises for outdoor seating. So what this and the next couple actually have to do that's a little bit different than what we've been talking about is we just voted to issue the permits to a bunch of restaurants to be able to have the outdoor use. A lot of the restaurants on that list are going to use their own property in order to have to do their outdoor seating. There are some that we're going to talk about as we go through this list, Jalapenos being one, that wants to be able to use the town property out on Route 1A. And so that's what this is all about. Ashley, have I said that correctly?
Yes, so we're talking about alteration of premises, and I just want to be clear that this is a temporary alteration under the governor's order, so it's until November 1st or until the governor rescinds the order. And the second thing we're talking about are the lease agreements for using public space.
Okay, thanks. Jim, anything else you'd add?
No, I know for Raven's Nest and Tessie's, these are definitely temporary. I know long-term Ricardo would like to pursue something in the back there. I believe he's investing in a tent. We've talked about this about 2 years ago. So when it gets to that point and we're there, I'll bring us forward and Ricardo could probably join us.
Okay, that's great. All right, let's have some discussion. David, I'll start with you.
I was re-looking at the documents. Took me a second to flip over. Yeah, I see that there's good. I saw the insurance rider for one of them, but I assume that they're there for everybody. That's important, and yeah, if the Jalapenos can come in during the winter rather than, I know they came another time and they tried to do it in the spring. If they want to talk about a long-term solution with that, the property in the back, but for this temporary, I think it's, and I'm glad Ashley pointed out again that it is a temporary situation, but yeah, I like it, and thank you for your hard work, Ashley. Ms. Clark.
Thanks, David. Mark, I'll go to you next.
I'm good with this.
Ben?
No additional comment, thanks.
And none from me either. Ben, a motion, please?
I'd make a motion to approve the request of Jalapenos for temporary alteration of premises for outdoor seating on town property.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. I'll start with you, Mark.
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
And Jim? Aye, 4-0-0. These next two, Ashley, I'll turn to you on these next two. Maybe just cover them both, but we've got the vote to approve and sign license agreements with Jalapenos and then also with the Raven's Nest and Tessie's. So could you just touch on those?
So the agreements with Raven's Nest and Tessie's is to use the about 4 parking spaces along 1A and a little bit of space on the sidewalk. We're working through the details still of exactly how we're going to block that off. So there's some logistical things that still need to be worked out with that. I'm confident that we'll be able to do that. We're working with DPW, police, and fire to make sure all the egress is met. We did a site visit with building department to look, kind of at how it would make sense. So we're still finalizing those details. And yeah, so those are those two. And then jalapenos, I think we talked about pretty thoroughly. So if there's any questions about what they're doing, I'm happy to answer those.
Thanks, Ashley. Jim, anything you'd add?
No, just that we're meeting at 10 o'clock tomorrow, right, Ashley, with building, fire, police, Melissa. I think Rick and Drew are going to come too, just to review all of these, especially this Raven's Nest and Tessie's one. So we'll have everything lined up by tomorrow.
Great, thanks, Jim. Okay, discussion. David, I'll start with you.
Yeah, just certainly we need some kind of protection for the parking spaces, but I think that also look at whether or not the Tessie's area would need some kind of protection from a vehicle leaving the roadway in that area. I think certainly you can see a collision, intersection collision that could send a car into that area, and it might be worthwhile to put some protection on the sidewalk itself.
Sure, if I could just add
For the corner.
The reason why we're having Drew and Rick sit in is we're talking about seeing how many Jersey barriers we have available. And I'm worried about that too, David, about that's such a dangerous spot there, but whatever's there, we'll make sure it's strong and sturdy.
Chief, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, we share the same concerns as Mr. Salvatore. And like I said, Ashley's been so thorough and doing a lot of the legwork here. So I know even like the 99 is looking at something similar. So we'll make sure that everything, that perimeter is secure and everything. So make sure everyone can dine safely.
Chief, you broke up a little bit at the very end. Could I just ask you to repeat the last sentence?
Sure, sorry about that. So I was mentioning that, Ashley's done a lot of the legwork, has been very thorough. The 99 has a similar type of, looking at just securing that perimeter, the dining area. So it would be very easy for us to do this as well in this location. Tomorrow we'll look at it and come up with some good ideas.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Mark, I'll go to you next for discussion.
Sounds like a good plan.
Thanks, Mark. Ben?
I think it sounds like a good plan. I would echo everyone's comments on safety. And also, I think it'll be interesting to see what the restaurants say at the conclusion of this and what patrons and town residents say on the conclusion of this. If those 2 parking spaces are worth more to the businesses as sidewalk that can be utilized for that purpose permanently. I think that we should all kind of take this as a dry run to see how it works to utilize the front and back of these premises for when we do possibly consider something more permanent, as we've all said, way down the road from today.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Ben. Ashley, maybe I could ask you to take back to the Economic Development Commission that point that Ben just made so that we, capture that, and perhaps they could look into that and see if they come back with a recommendation, obviously with your help. So that'd be great. Okay, and I think this is a wonderful idea, and obviously echo the safety concerns everyone has raised, and as long as we've got that covered, we're good. So time for a vote. So all in favor say aye, opposed no. Mark, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Ben? Actually, wait a minute, back up. We didn't do a motion. So Ben,
Yep.
Sorry, motion.
All right, so that's okay. Yeah, so there's 2 separate motions. I would make a motion to approve and sign the license agreement with Jalapenos Restaurant.
I'll second that.
Okay, now all in favor say aye, opposed say no. Mark?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Jim, aye, 4-0-0. Ben, back to you.
I would make a motion to approve and sign the license agreement with Raven's Nest and Tessie's Bar and Kitchen.
I'll second that.
All in favor say aye, opposed nay. David, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye, 4-0-0. The motion carries. Next, we have a vote request from Ashley Clark to approve the Walpole Center Open Space Pilot Program. So, Ashley, can you just take us through this?
Yes, I'll try to be brief. I could probably talk about this for a very long time because it makes my planner heart sing a little bit. So this is a proposal, it's a pilot. So for the last 3 weekends in June, we are asking you to consider allowing for the street closures of the portions that kind of cut through the common. So Front Street as it's bounded by West and 1A, and Elm Street as it's bounded by West and 1A. And the idea is that those streets would be closed from Friday about 6 p.m. through Sunday evening. And that would just allow for families to kind of have a more relaxed environment. I don't know, like the tables out there are wonderful, but if you go out there and you've got a kid under the age of like 7, you're gonna think about the kid running out into the road. So it could be an interesting thing to see how it turns out. Maybe no one will take advantage of it, but I think a lot of people will, and I think people will really enjoy having the park open without cars going through it. A big part of this was we did a site visit with police, fire, and Jim and kind of talked about what is something that would be sustainable that we could realistically do. And this is kind of what we came up with together. I kind of get the fun part through all of these, bringing these things to you, but all of the departments in Walpole have been so wonderful at helping me get these things through. And so I just want to thank them and kind of say, like, DPW has been great, police, fire, health, everyone has really worked well together. So there's my plug there. I'll stop. I could keep talking, but I can answer questions instead. I think that might be more helpful.
Sure. Jim, anything you'd add before we go to discussion?
No, I think it's a great idea. We walked the area with the chief, the deputy, one of the sergeants. Chief Bailey was also out there. Again, we're all looking forward to getting people back downtown and out, and I think this will help it. And it's a good pilot. We'll see if it works, and if it does, maybe we'll make it a long-term.
Great, thanks, Jim. Chief, let me go to you next. Any comments?
Sure, we're looking forward to this. I know Ashley originally wanted to look at the possibility of doing something more along the lines of Main Street Live. Maybe even, shutting down the center somehow. Unfortunately, when we looked at that, that obviously just causes a lot of logistical problems as far as how we divert traffic and resources to try and get that done. So we went out there and looked at it, and we were able to come up with an event plan that's similar to what you see for a concert on the Common. So where we block off that segment on Front Street, and then also over in between the two commons where the flagpole is on Elm Street. So we think that we could get that all barricaded in. During the more busy times, I think what we would do is probably assign a bicycle officer or an officer down there for that like a 4-hour time frame, probably just to help with people that might be crossing, or just to make sure that traffic is staying out of there and they know where to go and that sort of thing. But I think it'll work really well. And like I said, if you just envision what you've seen down there for concerts on the Common, it would kind of look something similar to that.
Great, thanks, Chief. Okay, I'm going to open up for discussion for questions to Ashley, Jim, or the Chief. So, David, I'll start with you.
Looks like a good idea. One of the things, they did a study in one of the Northern European countries about traffic, and what they did was recreate the traffic flow so that people knew that there would be pedestrians around and slowed the traffic. And much like the cross streets at Patriot Place, if you know how those are, where when you go through those cross streets, you definitely know that this is an area where that people are going to be passing through. So when it comes time to redesign or look at these in the future, we ought to be looking at some of those traffic signals that say, hey, there's going to be people walking through here for those particular spots, so that that the pedestrians and the cars can more equally share the space. But definitely a good, certainly blocking it off completely gives good signaling, but perhaps in the future, maybe we can use it as an opportunity to educate people that these parks are in use and that they're the proximity of the park to the roadway, and just somehow say, you know, to calm the traffic in that area for the future.
Thanks, David. Mark, I'll go to you next.
I think it's a good idea, you know, to run the pilot program. I saw that you might bring in an ice cream truck at some point. I'd ask you if you thought about maybe doing a little music from time to time.
So right now, the goal is to not create crowds. But certainly I reached out to Diane, who has the ice cream truck, about maybe coming out. I know like a couple weeks ago, it was so hot and I want an ice cream so bad. So I think when I spoke with her, she takes, you know, sanitizing and social distancing, all of these things very seriously. So she was kind of talking through with me, you know, this would be important that we'd be in an area where we can have people spread the right distance. And so I think it would be a great addition. And then in terms of music and whatnot, so if it goes well, and I'll certainly be out there and see what people are doing. But, you know, maybe we could talk about an extension, you know, for summer, and as things start to open up, maybe we could talk about other things to bring to the common. But yeah, so baby steps, I think, is the game plan.
Great.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Mark. Ben, I'll go to you.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I appreciate all the legwork that you put into it, Ashley, and everyone in the town departments as well. I did have a couple of questions. One of which was, I had heard from folks even prior to this idea, but certainly since this idea has been passing around town, about the possibility of having takeout alcohol consumption as a part of this. Now, I know that's not a part of this plan, but how would that work, or how would that be incorporated or considered?
So just from my perspective, Glenn reached out, and he was one, and I think Joanne was asking about it too. Right now, the state, it has not passed hard alcohol sales to go. It's still pending with the state. The House passed it. So I was more or less waiting and seeing if it's passed and allowed. And you can take your alcohol and drink it on the common. The chief and I and Ashley kicked around some ideas. If people want to pursue that, maybe they could throw a wristband around someone's wrist or something. The big concern is we don't want to have people taking their alcohol from liquor stores and consuming it on the common there. So we need to be mindful. We reached out to Needham to see how they're handling it, because I think they recently allowed it or are about to allow it. So we're still exploring it, but we figured this would be the first step and see where the alcohol to go sales goes. Chief, Melissa, Ashley, did I miss anything?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and I think that people will utilize this, and if we allowed that, then I think that they would utilize it even more, certainly in the summer months, and with people's interest in that, and we can see how it goes for Needham as well. Certainly, all of these ideas are temporary to the extent that if it doesn't go well or if there's issues, then they can be removed immediately. So I would definitely encourage us to look at that and head down that path if we think it's viable in the future. The second comment I had, and I had mentioned this to you a little bit before, Ashley, but and not to get ahead of ourselves yet again, but we had been, back in January, this board had been discussing the master plan for the town. Certainly a portion of that would be a serious traffic study for the downtown area, and particularly given the new construction downtown. And what streets are used most heavily, and what traffic patterns would most benefit the residents, particularly with the lights and the new folks downtown. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this shapes up if we do it a little more often and see how the traffic patterns go. Because certainly having these streets closed, even on a permanent or semi-permanent basis, would have the purpose of not only expanding the green space downtown, increasing foot traffic. It just seems like a lot of good could come from that. So again, it's kind of looking towards the future, but something we might want to consider on a permanent basis based on obviously a lot more research. But thank you again, Ashley, for putting this together.
Yeah, and Ben, I agree with you, and would add that, with all those apartments coming online shortly, there's going to be a lot more people down in the downtown. So we probably do need to be thinking about how we best use the space that we've got downtown. So your idea is a really good one, to be thinking ahead to what do we learn from this, this particular, trial, if you will, and then how do we see that playing out in the future? So that's a really good idea. Maybe that's another thing, Ashley, you could bring to the EDC and have them at least, put it on the list of things to be thinking about longer term. Okay. I like the idea and support it. So we'll move to a vote. So Ben, could I have a motion, please?
I'd make a motion to approve the request of Ashley Clark for the Waffle Center Open Space Pilot Program.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye or nay if opposed. David?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 4-0-0. The motion carries. And I think... Go ahead, David.
Follow up. I didn't want to interrupt the vote, but something that Ben said about permitting takeout alcohol on the town land. I am not in favor of the serving of alcohol on the town common, nor the consumption of alcohol on the town common.
Thank you, David. Okay, so I think, Ashley, you've been the star of the show so far tonight, and thank you very much for all of these things that you brought us tonight, all really good stuff, and really do appreciate all the fine work you and as you have so well pointed out, all the collaboration that you're getting from the town and, the various boards that you're dealing with and your own EDC and so forth. So really, really well done. And I just want to thank you for taking us through all this tonight. It's real progress and something that the town really needs given where we are with the COVID thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next order of business. So we have town meeting coming up on June 20th. We are trying very hard to minimize the warrant for that town meeting because of the need to social distance and our concern about the vulnerability of the population and the RTMs and so forth. So after having gone through a whole lot of work on this, we've got a list of articles that we want to reconsider or refer back to the petitioners. And that's what our vote and discussion will be about right now. So Jim, let me hand it to you to embellish on what I just said.
Sure. So just counted, prior to COVID taking over our lives, it seems like the board had considered 7 articles. So my recommendation at this time, let me back up a little bit. So the moderator has informed the FinCom, that he is only going to take up 3 articles: the operating budget, and the sewer and water budgets. All other articles are going to be referred back to petitioner. So the Finance Committee took it upon themselves to refer back 22 of the 25 articles that are set to be considered. So they referred all those articles back, and we can revisit them in the future if people would like. So if your board would like to do the same, what you would need to do is reconsider the 7 articles that you have voted on back in March and February, which were Articles 2, 3, 4, 13, 18, 21, and 22. So you would you move to reconsider, and then if the board would like to, you could refer those back to petitioner. So you'd refer Articles 2 through 25 with the exception of 6, 8, and 9 back to petitioners. Is that clear?
So I think what you're saying is there are 2 votes we have to take.
Yes.
One, to reconsider the articles that we've already voted, which you've enumerated, and then the others to vote on the articles that we haven't yet taken up, but need to, correct?
Yes, and I believe Ben has the articles you need to move to reconsider.
Perfect, okay. All right, so let's go to discussion. Mark, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm in favor of reconsidering those articles and postponing them till the fall.
Okay, thanks, Mark. David?
That's the same.
And Ben?
No additional comment.
Okay, and I don't have any either. This is very straightforward and very smart. Ben, let's have a motion to first reconsider the articles that we have already voted, and then follow to a vote to refer back to committee the ones that we have not voted. Back to petitioner, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yep, so we'll have two motions. We have two motions.
Yeah, clarification is the second motion is going to be to reconsider all of them. I mean, to send them back to committee, all of them.
Yep, let me make the first motion here. I'd make a motion to reconsider Springtown meeting articles 2, 3, 4, 13, 18, 21, and 22.
I'll second that.
Aye for yes, no for nay for no. Mark, I'll start with you.
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
And Jim, aye, 400. The motion carries. Ben, could we now have a motion to refer back to petitioner?
All right. I would make a motion to refer articles 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25 back to petitioner.
I'll second that.
Let me just go around the horn just to make sure that there's no discussion. Mark?
No discussion.
Ben?
No additional comment.
And David?
I agree with this solution. I know there are some people that have filed petitions that aren't completely happy with this, but under the circumstances, I think, a November consideration of their petitions is not ending their petitions, and by reconsidering them or referring them back, we have made no permanent changes to their status, so that they're free to bring them up in November, and that's an important thing. Well, we're not doing anything; we're just recommending it. But I think the finance committee and the town meeting will be officially doing it, and I think this is a good way to get this meeting through and done and get the budgets done, and that's a good accomplishment for spring town meeting.
And I agree. Thanks, David. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Aye for yes, nay for no. David?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye, 400. The motion carries. Next up is a vote on the Springtown meeting articles 6, 8, and 9. Jim, you want to take us through these?
Sure. So 6 is the general operating budget, which totals 95, 295, 902. And we're raising and appropriating 92 million from taxation, 761 from ambulance, 13,000 from sale of lots, indirect costs for water 1.2 million, sewer 440, and overlay 350. So this is, as I've mentioned before, we've reduced this budget down. It's only about a $1.5 million increase. 1.5% increase over the FY20 budget. We cut about 2.5 over what was proposed back in March, 2.5 million that is, and we're moving forward. It's lean, but we're going to get things done. Doesn't use reserves. We're holding on to the reserves for 22 and 23 if necessary, and it's ready to go.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Discussion. David, I'll start with you.
So this is, I believe you just said it, but I wanted to reiterate and make it clear that this budget is $2.5 million less than the budget you proposed in February and March. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So if we weren't able to, for some reason, pass the budget at the new town meeting, the 1/12 budget would actually be a higher budget than the budget that you're seeking at town meeting. Is that correct?
No, not necessarily, because the budget that's being proposed is 1.5% higher than the FY20 budget. So it's a little bit higher. There's challenges associated with the 1/12 budget. First of all, the accountant and I aren't crazy about it. You have to submit to the Division of Local Services a budget each month to be approved until town meeting can meet. The first month's budget is way out of whack always, because it always includes our retirement assessment in there. And I just got the bill that's due July 1st, and it's $5.4 million. So it throws things off. They've made exceptions for things like that. I think in the police and fire departments, we used to have education incentives paid at the beginning of the year. We've changed that, but there's our property and casualty budget's paid at the beginning of the year. So July throws everything off. It can be done, but I really would feel more comfortable going to town meeting and having the people voted who are elected to vote on it.
Absolutely, I agree. You're right. My thinking was off, but I do appreciate the fact that you were able to take $2.5 million out of the budget, and I think, and the fact that we don't have to go into reserves right now is certainly laudable, and we see what the next year brings, and I appreciate that work. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. Ben, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, I would agree with David on the fact that it's good that we don't have to dip into our funds. I agree with that idea. To speak a little bit on the 1/12 budget, it's kind of become in vogue, if you could say that, to talk about the 1/12. It's a really interesting idea. It seems like something that would be very easy to do and very practical, but I urge those who have heard about it to read up on it more and to read the legislation on it and what is required. And I know that Jim explained a little bit about what it means to him and the finance folks at the town and the requirements that it puts on them, but they're rather onerous, and it is definitely not the way that we want to proceed if we are able to make a choice. And I believe we'll be able to have this town meeting in a fair fashion and have the RTMs decide on it in the way it was meant to be. So thanks, Jim, for all the work that you put into this.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Mark?
Yeah, I agree with Ben. I'd like to thank Jim and the finance team and all the department heads. I think you've done a good job tightening up the budget, not needing to dip into reserves and sort of saving those for a future year if we need them, depending on how the economy recovers or doesn't. So I think this is a good solution. I think it's important to vote a budget now at town meeting. I don't really like the 1/12 idea. So I think this is a good solution. Great job.
Thanks, Mark. So agree with the comments that have been made. Just to add my own spin on it, the 1/12 budget I actually think is a dangerous way to manage a town. I would much rather have our hands on the wheel rather than be depending upon what we're hearing from the state. I'm also fearful that we could end up having a front-loading effect of the spend and then have the revenues not show up, and we'd end up with a real problem on the back end. So my preference is the same as the rest of the board, which is to say we should own our own budget. We've done a really good job. Jim, you and your team have done an outstanding job of tightening down the budget. You have good, strong assumptions that we will be paying attention to month by month. And if need be, we'll make adjustments to the budget. I just feel much more comfortable with us actually controlling our own destiny on this, and feel that it's very important that we actually get this budget passed at town meeting. So Jim, again, thank you for all the great work and leadership that you've shown. Thanks to the finance team and all the department heads for all the cooperation in this really difficult time. I know a lot of hard choices had to be made, and those choices will have to be thought about in the future, but right now it is absolutely the right thing to do. So Jim, thank you.
Oh, and I'd like to thank Jody and Marilyn, Dennis too. Chief, who's on the line with us still, the Chief Bailey. Rick has really stepped up, Patrick, and everybody, the big departments, Bridget, Mike Frischer, we've all come together and kind of agreed that, yeah, Bridget would like to see something more than, a 1.66% increase for her budget, but she's going to make it work, and the kids in Waffle are still going to be educated. So and people are still going to be protected. So we're going to make it work.
Great, thanks, Jim. Ben, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, so we'll take them individually. Make a motion to recommend favorable action on Article 6.
I'll second that.
And roll call vote. Aye for yes, nay for no. Ben?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 4-0-0, the motion carries.
I'd make a motion to recommend favorable action on Article 8.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote again. Mark?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
David? David?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 4-0-0, the motion carries.
And I'd make a motion to recommend favorable action on Article 9.
I'll second that.
And David, I'll start with you this time.
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 4-0-0, the motion carries. All right, next up, we put an item on the agenda in case we needed it this week because the situation was quite fluid. Jim can explain that in more detail in a minute. Because we do want to have a discussion about the quorum requirements for the June 20th town meeting. As it turns out, because of the way the final rules were written, we will do that next week following a 7-day posting period, and the town moderator will join us for that conversation. So next Tuesday, we will have the discussion and make a decision on that. Jim, let me hand it over to you to elaborate further on the process that you saw up at the State House.
Sure. So we've been waiting for this to come for a couple of weeks. We thought it might come back in May. Didn't happen. We heard it was going to happen next week. So Jim and I talked. We put it on the agenda on Thursday. Legislation was signed into law at 5:40 on Friday afternoon to allow cities and towns to reduce their quorum requirements down to 10%. And I'm not suggesting, you guys can vote on, if you want to reduce it, you can work with the moderator as to how much. But so part of the legislation that I didn't know was going to be in there was a 7-day requirement, 7-day notice to anyone in the town. And obviously we didn't meet it on Friday. We talked with Lauren. We ended up posting it today, late in the day. The meeting requirement, we're going to, it's been posted online with the clerk. We're also going to advertise in a couple other spots at the post offices and everything for next Tuesday night at 6:30. For you, this board and the moderator to get together. The requirement is select board and the moderator has to vote to change the quorum requirement and agree to a reduction. So if this board were to vote 3-2 to change it, it would pass, but Dan could basically have veto power on that one. If this board voted 2-3 to change it, no change, it goes nowhere. So it's going to be up to you to work with the moderator to figure out if you do want to change it and if you want to change it to how much. So we've met the requirements. It's been out there, and obviously we'll have it televised and everything next week. So that's really where we're at. I'll take any questions you may have, but I encourage the board. I'll get you some more information over the next week about it and have the discussion on Tuesday night, because it's going to be only 4 days before town meeting. So that's it for me.
Okay, so let me just open it up for any questions for Jim. Ben, I'll start with you.
I don't have any additional questions at this time, but I do look forward to getting that additional information, Jim, that you just described.
And I will have Lauren in on the call next week too.
Thank you.
David?
Have any towns recently had trouble getting quorums?
I don't know. I talked to Westwood, their town manager, and they voted to, they actually had a court order to reduce their quorum down to 44 people. He's the only one I've recently talked to about it. I know, I'll reach out to Norwood to see what they did. They just had an election yesterday. So before next week, I'll do a little survey.
And it was down to 44 from what, Ian?
They're an open town meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea whether, would it be useful to poll the town meeting members to see if they intend to show up, or if there's people that are, I mean, looking at the traffic on the roadways, and people are making their way out. I'm sure that knowing town meeting members and the responsibilities that they, I've never been to a meeting that hasn't had a quorum. People show up, people study, people are very responsible. I really don't think right now that a quorum is going to be an issue. But is there any way to email people and just see if there's some people that aren't wanting to come, and if they want to somehow remotely participate instead? I don't know if we can do that, but instead of being there in person.
I know Liz has a master list. I can see if she can do an informal survey and ask them if they plan on showing up. I know we cannot do the remote participation because that's the moderator's, it's kind of his call, and he's not interested in pursuing it. He wants it in person.
I just think, I'm not sure. I think, like I said, looking at the roads, people are not staying home. So I think the responsible crew that is the representative town meeting, I'm sure they're not going to stay home for, a quick 1 hour, an hour and a half meeting in this important time. I suspect unless you are, in some health issues, that most people are going to show up.
Thanks, David. Mark?
Yeah, on one hand, I would say that I'm going to encourage all the RTMs to come, and I know most of them will come. I wouldn't want anybody who has health issues to feel pressured. So on the other hand, I probably would be in favor of lowering the quorum somewhat, kind of just in case. So, it should be a good discussion next week.
Thanks, Mark. And I agree. I think it's going to be a good conversation, one we need to have going into the town meeting. So we'll hold off on further discussion here tonight until next week, and have the moderator come in, and as a group we'll figure this thing out. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is to vote to award designer services contract bid contract number 2020-27. Jim, you want to take us through this one?
Yes, this is for Tappe Architects. They are the firm that was chosen by the review committee, the MSBA, and myself and Bridget, and the chairman of the committee, chose Tappe to serve as our architect for the middle school project that's proceeding forward. Total fee proposal is for $833,000. That is actually below what they proposed. They proposed close, about 850. We got them down a little bit, and it's below our budget of, we had 870 budgeted for it. This article was appropriated through free cash last fall, and we've, 2 falls ago. We're ready to go on it. I know you may ask why not wait on this one. The MSBA is really pushing us on this one. They're kind of in the driver's seat. So they want to see us proceed since we were accepted into the program and the funds are available. So right now, if we were to award this contract, the total amount appropriated for this was $1.5 million. We'd still have $317,000 left over when you consider Compass's contract and the Tappe contract of $833.
Okay, we'll do the round the horn for discussion. David, I'll start with you.
That sounds, no questions. Sounds good.
Thanks, David. Ben?
Yeah, I don't have any additional questions. The presentation and other information that was included that'll go out in the meeting minutes was very comprehensive. It was nice to see the attention that this architect in particular took to the size of the middle school, the way that the middle school would be constructed, with the consideration for the possibility of merging two schools. It seems like they were really open to considering a variety of ideas in that regard. So I think that's encouraging. And I'd also highlight that not only was the school building committee, which is comprised of residents, folks on various committees in town currently, but the school administration and the Massachusetts School Building Authority's designer selection panel all recommended this. And the DSP through the state is, I believe, 10 or 12 independent members within the architecture and construction field. So they had also reviewed this. Certainly, no one can accuse the MSBA process of not being thorough. So, feel good about it. It's a solid choice.
Yeah, and I agree. And this is a rigorous process. And David, I'm sure you could even attest to that more than us, given that you're our representative on that committee. This really is an exhaustive process, and I've been pleased with the work that's been done so far, and yet another step down the path. So I'll be supporting this as well. Okay, so round the horn, aye for yes and nay for no. David?
I'll make the motion first.
Geez, I'm sorry, Ben. Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Thanks, Ben.
I don't want to hold this. I don't want to hold this up, but
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to award bid contract 2020-27 to Tepe Architects in the amount of $833,000.
Okay. And we have a motion and a second. David?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 4-0-0. The motion carries. All right, next we have a vote to allow the chairperson the chairperson or vice chairperson to approve year-end transfers. Jim, you want to touch on this one quickly?
This is one of those pretty standard ones. Last week, the finance committee took this up. This is just for, we've never had town meeting this close. Usually we're doing this right after town meeting in May, but this is just if any departments hit any shortfalls, any transfers up to $10,000 could be approved by the chairman of the Board of Select Board and the FinCom. So they've given Mark the authorization to do it for FinCom, just asking the same for the Select Board. At this time, we don't see anything. We're keeping a close eye on police, on legal. Fire looks okay, and John Cogan looks okay unless he has any transfers in. So it's looking okay, but might be tight in a couple of spots. If we need anything, I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Discussion, Mark?
Nope.
David?
So how long would this authority last till July 1st?
Only to the end of this fiscal year.
We're having a meeting next week and the week after?
Yes.
I personally see no reason to give the chairman authority. I think we should gain our authority and been some incidents with the chairman changing an agenda and leaving someone off the economic development renewal. I would feel much more comfortable if we I'd be happy to prepare for a special meeting at the last week of July if necessary, but since we're having a weekly meeting, I don't think there's any reason to cede that authority.
Thanks, David. Ben?
Given the dollar value requirements put on that, I don't see any issue with it.
And Mark, did I go to you?
Yeah, but I don't see any issue with it. I think this is a pretty standard process for us, and it's a good idea to do.
And I feel the same way. Okay, roll call vote. I for yes, Dave for no.
I got it. I'll make a
Sorry,
motion
someone
to.
saying something?
I'll make a motion to allow the chairperson or in his absence, vice chairperson to approve year-end transfers.
Up to 10,000.
All right, let me take a whole nother run at it, up to 10,000. I'd make a motion to allow the chairperson or in his absence, the vice chairperson to approve year-end transfers up to $10,000 in value.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Mark,
Aye.
David,
No.
Ben,
Aye.
and Jim, I 310, the motion carries. Next up, we have a vote to renew the animal control officer warrant. Jim, can you touch on this?
Sure. This is something that the board considers every year around this time. This is a warrant that's authorized under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 151A. This basically charges the animal control officer to grant permission to do what he does, which includes seek out, catch, and confine all dogs within the city, which are not licensed, collared, or harnessed, or tagged as required by this chapter.
Thanks, Jim. Discussion, Ben.
I have no additional comment.
Thanks, David.
No discussion.
And Mark.
I'm good with this.
And Jim, I'm good with it as well. Ben.
I'd make a motion to renew and sign the animal control officer warrant.
I'll second that.
All in favor say aye, nay for no. Mark,
Aye.
Ben,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and Jim, aye, 400. The motion carries. Okay, we're at the consent agenda. David, do you want to take us through that?
Sure, once.
David, I think you're on mute.
Okay. I was having trouble looking at both screens at once. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. The following items we voted as one item. A donation from Gary and Deborah Riggett to the Veterans Committee account. Raven's Nest donation of 10 coupons for $10 each to the Community Marketing Program for $100. And Napa Tandy's $20, 24 coupons for $10 each to the Community Marketing Program in the amount, for the amount of $240.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye, or opposed nay. Mark,
Aye.
Ben,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and Jim, aye, 400. The consent agenda motion carries. We're down to the town administrator's update. So Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. Let me pull it over here. Okay, update on Corona. At this time, there are 247 total confirmed positive cases in Waffle. 244 cases have completed monitoring. That leaves us with just 3 undergoing monitoring. That's the lowest in a long time. So that's great. And Trish Fisher continues to do some great work following up on everything with Melissa. Finance Committee, their public hearing is set for Monday the 15th at 7:30. I think they're going to get started at 7, but there's no new business to take up, so they all might log in about 7:20. Their recommendations are ready and set to go. Town meeting is set and ready to go for Saturday, June 20th, with a rain date of the 21st, Sunday. Members can start checking in at 9 a.m. We are going to set up and get ready to start around 10 a.m. We did a sound check end of last week. Everything sounds okay. We're probably going to do a walkthrough with Dan, the moderator, Dan and Liz, and a couple of the sound people midweek next week, just to make sure he's comfortable. The setup is going to be facing the bleachers, all the audience, Dan will be in the middle on a trailer that's elevated like a stage. Myself, the chairman, Lauren, will be off towards closer to the scoreboard with department heads over there. So we kind of have it all planned out. Recreation, Brendan and Ariel have pitched in and helped out. We're going to have goodie bags for each town meeting member that has a bottle of water, sunscreen, and I think Melissa had one other item in there, maybe some bug spray or something. The packets are going out at the end of this week, and I just finalized everything. I'm just waiting for Dan. He might have some protocols that he wants to include in the packet. We're not going to hand out any paperwork at town meeting, so I'm making sure that everybody gets an extra copy of the warrant in the town meeting packet. The warrant is set to be delivered to all the residents. It's supposed to get to the post office, I think, on Thursday or Friday of this week. So it'll be in their hands well before town meeting there. And that's it for town meeting. I've started thinking about reopening the public buildings, working with Melissa and Dawn to make sure that we have safeguards in place. I'm eyeballing Town Hall, Blackburn, Fire Station, Police Station to open within the next few weeks. And for the most part, the department heads have been accommodating to meet residents outside if necessary. I think Liz has done 1 or 2 weddings. And we've tried to help people out. Melissa's out there with Rika doing the septic inspections. The building department, they're going full speed ahead. We got plenty of pools going in around town, private pools. So we've tried to be accommodating, but it's getting close to us getting open. We've made some changes in here. We put up some glass in the town clerk's office, put some counter space in areas to keep social distance. So we're going to be ready pretty soon. That leads me to the COA and the library. We're not going to be ready with them. I want to make sure that there are plenty of safeguards in with both of those buildings, especially the COA. The library, we'd have to bring back the staff. So we're waiting for the state to give us some guidance on those 2 buildings. I'm really sensitive about those. The board meetings in person. Sewer and water commissioners had their rate meeting yesterday. The commissioners would like to meet, in person soon. I told them there's nothing really preventing them at this time, unless if they really want to, they can. I suggested meeting potentially up at Jarvis Farm outdoor where the air can get to them. So very soon, I'd like to propose that this board start to meet in person if you'd like. The finance committee meeting room is just about done. We're just waiting for the chairs to come in. That room is a lot bigger than the select board meeting room, but we have the nice tables in there. You guys can spread out. So I think maybe beginning of July, we're going to be ready for you guys to start meeting in person again if you'd like. That's your call though, but we're ready to go. I think that's it for me. Any questions?
Any questions for Jim? David?
Yeah, I'm good. I think July for meeting in person is fine. I think probably could start even sooner if anybody wants to, if it works. And it's good that you plan for town meetings coming through. I think that should work out fine. I think, like I said, I think people are going to show up.
Thanks, David. Ben, anything for Jim?
Yeah, just one question, Jim. You had mentioned in one of the preparatory emails about the Waffle Town Charter revision and it making its way through legislation. Did you ever hear back on that?
Yes, actually, Senator Feeney's chief of staff, Tino, reached out today, and he was personally reaching out to the chairman of, I forget what committee it's in front of. It's going for the 3rd reading. Because I'm calling everyone the select board now. I'm getting used to it. I think pretty much everyone is used to it now. So we just need to make it happen. And he promised me that he'd get it done. I think it's taken a back seat, obviously, with COVID, but
sure.
We're ready.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Mark?
I'll just say I do like the idea of boards being able to meet in person. I'd just like to make sure if anybody felt uncomfortable with that, we could still do the Zoom thing that we've done before, where some are in person, some are in Zoom, just in case. We don't really know what's going to happen with the virus over time, but I think it is a good idea to get back together. And I really like the idea of the FinCom room. where we can really spread out.
Thanks, Mark. And I agree with that. And also the idea of the FinCom room. So the Zoom thing is fine and it's working well for us, but it's far better to be in person and to have the opportunity for the public to actually attend with us. So I think that's something we should be working towards, and July sounds about the right time frame.
And just to touch upon that, you just reminded me, ZBA and Planning Board, obviously, are the two ones that where I'm really mindful of, because the ZBA has four cases. It's going to be five 40Bs before them. Ashley has gone ahead and asked me to reserve the auditorium at the high school for them to have their meetings, and I booked it through Mike Frischer for some of the Wednesdays in the summer. So for those meetings where I think it's going to be well attended, we're going to have a much bigger space. I don't think we should do it in the senior center, but maybe the high school auditorium was the first spot that came to mind, so we booked it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. There was one other thing, if I'm.
Sure, go ahead, David.
The library, is there any activity there now, or is it completely closed?
No, Sal, it's limited activity, but Sal and the remaining staff, which is the assistant director, his clerk, and the children's librarian, I think, they are doing curbside pickup, and he's pretty busy, he told me. I saw him today.
Oh, good, because I had heard about the curbside pickup, and then I didn't hear anything further, so it's good at least the curbside pickup is going on.
Thanks, David. Jim, good update. Thank you. Last item that we have on our agenda today is the approval of the minutes from May 26th. Ben?
I'd make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 26, 2020.
I'll second that.
Aye for yes, nay for no, as always. Mark?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
And Jim, aye. 4-0-0, the motion carries. And that concludes our agenda for this week. We will meet again next Tuesday to take up the item that we discussed earlier around the quorum for the town meeting. So we'll be back a week from now. Patrick from Walpole Media, again, thank you for taking good care of us tonight and getting this streamed out onto YouTube and all that so people can see what we're talking about. And thanks everybody for your participation. We'll talk soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Good night.